I'm talking, of course, about hydrophiles, that head of the tadpole that gives the water-soluble, water-loving nature to the surfactant. You know, we spend an awful lot of time talking about hydrophobes, linear alkyl benzene, alpha olefins, detergent range alcohols, but there are 4 big hydrophiles that are essential to surfactant performance that you really should know about. Number 1, sulfur trioxide, SO3. It makes sulfonates and sulfates, right? LAS, AS, AES, and SO3 comes from sulfur. Most sulfur is a byproduct of petroleum refining. It's present in fossil fuels at a level of between 1 and 3%, and 80% of the world's sulfur is from fossil fuel processing. With the switch to renewable energy and biorenewable chemicals, it's expected that there will be a shortfall in sulfur by the year 2040, which is not that far away, as sources of sulfur, traditional sources of sulfur, dry up. So that's something to be thinking about, and that is starting to be reflected now in pricing for sulfur, certainly over the last 10 years and projected into the future. Another interesting thing that's happening in sulfur is in India, there have been laws passed which regulate the disposal of spent sulfuric acid from the production of LAS 90%, which is still produced via an oleum route, concentrated sulfuric acid route. As the switch in technology occurs to meet the effects of these regulations, you're going to see a change in technology and the use increasingly of SO3 produced from molten sulfur in much the same way that it is in developed markets like North America, Western Europe, and most parts of Asia. Number 2, EO, ethylene oxide. It is a big petrochemical intermediate. It's used to make non-ionic surfactants, ethoxylates, obviously. And of course, its uses go way beyond that into glycols, PET, antifreeze, and medical equipment sterilization. It's been under a lot of pressure. I write an article on this in HPC Today, soon to be published. The title of the article is there a war on EO? That's for you to decide. But in addition to regulations around transportation of EO, there's EPA activity around fence line monitoring of EO concentration in the atmosphere in the vicinity of chemical plants and EO storage and handling facilities. There is a lot of negative press around EO, particularly regarding its use in medical equipment sterilization. And of course, EO is associated with the presence of dioxane in ether sulfates and ethoxylates. And so you've had regulations in New York State and California around the dioxane content of consumer products. There is proposed regulation in the EU coming out of Germany, which is supposed to limit the concentration of dioxane in surfactants, not in consumer products, in surfactants to the 1 ppm active matter basis level. So that's going to have a huge impact on the use of EO, certainly the processing of EO to make ethoxylates and, of course, ethoxy derivatives like ethoxysulfate. So another thing to keep an eye on. Number 3, nitrogen. It comes where? Out of the petrochemical supply chain again via the Haber-Bosch process, hugely important process for the production of nitrogen. And of course, nitrogen is used in quaternary ammonium compounds, easy for me to say, cationic quats, as well as a whole range of amine-based products, amphoterics in particular. So very important, especially in the co-surfactant area. And number 4, last but not least, carbohydrates. So these are things like sugars, sucrose, glucose, etc. Alkyl polyglucosides, APGs, are built on glucose. Many biosurfactants take in some form of sugar, and you can see the carbohydrate forming the hydrophilic portion of things like rhamnolipids and sophorolipids, fairly well-established technology right now. And of course, globally, there are much more abundant sources of carbohydrate. According to Wikipedia, the most prevalent organic material on Earth, and certainly therefore the most prevalent carbohydrate, is cellulose. And so there's something to think about. I think a lot more progress to be made in that area around the use of CHO containing compounds as a hydrophile for surfactants. So that's it for this week. I hope you found this glimpse at the unsung heroes of surfactants useful. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for listening.